morning everyone. Welcome to the digital classroom with Holy Heart Schools. Today we are going to start with our chapter Weathering. In today's video we will be discussing about weathering and factors responsible for weathering. While going through these topics, we will be learning some new words like number 1, weathering. The process of loosening, disintegration and decomposition of rocks at or near the earth's surface. Number 2, tectonic forces. Forces or conditions within the earth that cause movement of the crust. Number 3, exogenic forces. The forces which originate on the surface of the earth. Example, weathering, erosion, etc. Number 4, gradation. Leveling of the land due to the erosion by the agents such as rivers, running water, wind and waves. Erosion, wearing away of rocks on the surface of the earth due to running water, wind or waves. Number 6, degradation, when landform of high elevation are reduced in height. Number 7, degradation, when landform of low elevation are increased in height. Number 8, denudation. It is a dynamic process that includes disintegration and decomposition of rocks. Number 9, disintegration, breaking down of rock masses. And at last we have decomposition, breaking down of rocks by altering or dissolving the rock minerals due to chemical action. Now students, please open up your books on chapter number 9, page 65. But before we start with the today's topic, let's have a brief of the topic. Earth's crust is dynamic and ever-changing. All the changes take place under the influence of certain forces working continuously within the earth as well as over the surface of the earth. So basically there are two types of forces that are working on the earth crust. One is exogenic and second one is endogenic forces. If I say in a layman language, exogenic forces are known as the external forces, whereas endogenic forces are known as internal forces. Now, if we talk according to the geographical terms, the endogenic forces may be diastrophic, which may act very slowly, or they may be sudden forces. Example, earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. And exogenic forces cause wearing down of elevations and filling up of depressions. Now wearing down in a technical language is known as degradation, and filling up of land in geographical terminology is known as degradation. So this phenomena of degradation and aggradation is known as gradation, which means leveling of land. Gradation is very closely interrelated with denudation, which is a dynamic process that includes disintegration and decomposition of rocks, transporting the eroded material and depositing it at some other place. From it is very clear that the process of denudation includes weathering, erosion, transportation and deposition. So now students, let's start with the reading of our topic today. Weathering. The tectonic forces working in the interior of the earth tend to cause difference in surface elevation. Tectonic forces means forces that cause movement of the earth crust, and elevation means height. Either they may increase the height of the landform or it may lead to the decrease in the height of the landform. These are called constructive forces as they give rise to the major landforms on the surface of the earth. For example, landslides caused by the earthquake can form depressions, which are formed as lakes. Volcanic eruptions may lead to the formation of new plateau regions. The forces which originate on the surface of the earth act in direct opposition to the tectonic forces. These external or exogenic forces tend to reduce the difference in the surface ratio. It means they bring the landform to a common level by eroding the highlands and filling up the depressions. The external forces work through the process of weathering, erosion, transportation, deposition, etc. Now here, weathering involves loosening, disintegration and decomposition of rocks at or near the earth's surface. And erosion is the wearing away of rocks on the surface of the earth due to the running water, wind and waves. Now here, with the process of erosion, the weathered material will be displaced as they have potential to be displaced by the agents of weathering. Further, the eroded material reaches from one place to another, and this is known as transportation. It can be done by the agents of denudation and erosion. For example, if we take water as an agent, it can take sediments to long distances till seashore or can also be deposited on the way or on the banks of the river. Transportation can also be done by the landslides, but now here the gravity will act as an agent. And final phase will be the deposition, where the eroded material reaches its eventual destination and deposit at one place. Here, the sun is the main source of energy for them. Next we have the processes which tend to bring the surface of lithosphere, means the part of the earth covered with land, to a common level are known as gradation. Gradation means leveling of land. The work of gradation is done by the process of degradation. Degradation means when the landform of high elevation are reduced in height, and aggradation, which means when the landform of low elevation are increased in height. Degradation is also known as denudation, which means disintegration and decomposition of rocks or to lay bare. The process of denudation includes weathering and erosion. Now next we will be discussing weathering in detail. Weathering is the action of elements of weather and climate, plants and animals on the land surfaces to break them down physically, chemically and biologically. It is a disintegration and decomposition of rocks near the earth's surface. It does not involve the transportation of materials, so it is a very static process. Nature and amount of weathering differ not only from place to place but also from time to time. The work of the weathering depends on temperature or on nature of rock. It has been observed that various rocks react to weather conditions due to their mineral composition, texture and structure. For example, igneous rocks are more susceptible to chemical weathering. Next we have climate. The two main factors that affect weathering under climate are temperature and other forms of precipitation. These two factors help in breaking down of rocks into smaller fragments as indicated in the humid and arid regions of the world. Next we have plants. Plants can cause mechanical and chemical weathering. When plants cause mechanical weathering, their roots grow into cracks and crack them. It can also happen in streets and sidewalks. When the plants cause chemical weathering, their roots release acid or other chemicals onto rocks, which then forms cracks and breaks apart. Next we have slope of the land. Weathering also depends upon the gradients of the slope. The steep slopes of the rocks are eroded more rapidly by the agents of weathering as compared to the gentle slopes. And at last we have exposure to wind. The wind blown sand particles attack the rocks and erode them. This is most common in deserts. Some portions of the soft rocks are easily eroded by the action of wind, whereas the hard rocks remain exposed. For example, mushroom rocks. So now let's read. The term weathering is used for breaking up and decay of exposed rocks. Decay means decomposed by the action of bacteria. The weathering of rocks is caused by the change in temperature. This can easily be seen in sandy, arid and semi-arid regions where the durational range of temperature is quite high. This causes the expansion of rocks during the day and contraction during the night, and this leads to the disintegration of rocks. Next we have frost action. Frost forms the most important agent of weathering. In the mountainous regions or in the cooler regions, the disintegration of rocks can be the result of freezing action of water. Water that fill up the joints or cracks of the rocks freezes during the night. The ice or frozen water expands by about one-tenth of its volume. The ice needs more space into the cracks, so it exerts pressure to widen the cracks. During the day, the ice melts and water percolates further into the cracks. Now again at night, water freezes and it leads to the widening of cracks. This process continues, and alternate freezing and melting of ice ultimately lead to the disintegration of rocks. Next we have action of plants, animals and human activities. The roots of plants may penetrate deep into the cracks in search of water and nutrients. These roots exert great pressure on the rock surface, which results in the widening of cracks and ultimately causing the rocks to break. Burrowing of animals such as earthworms, ants and rats also contribute towards the disintegration of rocks. They lose rock material and expose more rock fragments to the agents of degradation. And at last we have human activities. Human activities such as deforestation, cultivation of land, mining, etc. also contribute towards the weathering of rocks. The process of weathering involves no motion and thus it is a static process. It means it does not involve the transportation of material. The products remain where they were formed. It is generally followed by the process of erosion, means removal of top layer of soil by wind and water, in which the weathered rock material is picked up and transported. The process which involves loosening, disintegration and decomposition. Disintegration means breaking of the rocks and decomposition means breaking of the rocks due to the chemical actions at or near the earth's surface are called weathering. A large number of factors and agents such as heating, cooling, freezing, thawing. Thawing means the process of ice, snow or any other frozen substance becoming liquid as a result of warming. Plants, animals, chemical actions. Chemical change refers to the change in the internal structure of any substance or object. Chemical change occurs due to the chemical action of air and water on the minerals present on the rocks. Next we have factors responsible for weathering. The nature and the amount of weathering differ not only from place to place but also from time to time. The work of weathering depends mainly on the following factors. Number 1. Type of rocks. The nature and the structure of rocks plays a vital role in disintegration of rocks. Nature of rocks refers to the composition of rocks. Some rocks may be hard and some soft. Some may be soluble and some may be insoluble. Hence, the mechanical weathering takes place in the softer or soluble rocks more easily than in the hard and insoluble rocks. The texture or arrangement of the rocks also affects the process of weathering. For example, the vertically arranged layer of rocks are more susceptible to weathering as compared to horizontally arranged layers as air, water, snow and frost enters through gaps. Next we have climatic conditions. The effects of weathering on rocks vary according to the prevailing climatic conditions in that area. For example, in the equatorial regions, where there is extremely hot and humid climate throughout the year, in such conditions the chemical weathering is more rapid and continuous. Whereas in temperate regions, the frost is the most powerful agent of mechanical weathering. And if we talk about polar regions, the climate is very cold throughout the year. The permanent snow cover prevents the weathering of rock surface. At some places, due to frost section, mechanical weathering can occur. Next we have type of vegetation cover. The type of vegetation cover plays an important role in the process of weathering. For example, in desert regions, xerophyte plants have long roots that grow into the cracks and crevices in search of water or nourishment. As they grow, they exert great pressure on the rocks and break them. Whereas in delta regions, the trees have stilt roots which check soil erosion and hence it prevents weathering. Next we have slope of the land. The steep sides of the mountains and hills make water flow down them faster. Fast moving water has more energy to break down rocks than slow moving water. Therefore, rocks on steep slopes can weather faster than the rocks on level ground. At last we have the exposure to sun, wind and rain. These three form the main agents of weathering, especially in the arid, semi-arid and equatorial regions of the world. So now students, with this we are ending up with our topic for the day. Please revise your topic, do the related question answers and please keep exploring. Thank you.